My wife's family's from Colombia, and the first time I went to visit, my wife's cousin made a delicious soup. And after I tried it, she asked, "Do you like the soup?" And I said, "Oh yes, it's delicious, thanks." And my wife quietly informed me in English I had just offended her cousin. And as I was wondering how in the world I could have done that, the cousin's granddaughter comes in, takes one bite of the soup and says, "Abuela, did you make this soup? Oh my gosh, this is delicious. This is the best soup I've ever had in my life. I would die to be able to eat this soup." Now you'll notice we both complimented the soup, albeit a little bit differently. And you might be thinking, do Colombians have like this thing with soup? I think they do. But it's not about soup. This is about culture. You see, in Colombian culture, to show appreciation, you use expression and exaggeration. That's just kind of the norm. And you might say to yourself, well, that's great if I were to go to Colombia. But the reality is my wife, who's Colombian, lives here and works here. So how her supervisor shows appreciation, how her teammates give her feedback, is going to be impacted by culture. And that's because culture matters to work and our relationships. In addition to showing appreciation, culture matters for gaining alignment. There's the soup. So I was working with the development team. We built our user stories, the development and testing, and went live with a major operational system just before the year ended. But before we could pat ourselves on the back, we got a phone call. And some of you have experienced these phone calls. We had to roll back. And not just because of one or two issues. We had over 40 missed requirements, most of them regulatory and required for MVP. And I'm thinking to myself, guys, you were there. Like, you signed off on this. What's going on? Now, if you can't tell by my accent, I'm biracial, half white, half Caucasian. And in my community, direct conversations are the norm. If I ask you if something's good or right or done, I expect you're going to tell me directly. And if you see an issue that I don't see, I expect you're going to come let me know about it so we can work on it together. Craig Storty is a cross-cultural business expert, and he shares that in some cultures, relational harmony is often more important than the task. You wouldn't want to bring up an issue, especially in a public forum, because you might jeopardize that harmony between your coworkers. Also, in some cultures, hierarchy is of vast importance. Bringing up an issue, especially when there's a project manager or a supervisor in the room, can make you not only look ignorant, but even insubordinate. And I was working with a Mexican client where some of these values were at play. I think I'm just asking a very simple question, and really I'm creating tension and awkwardness in the relationship. As they said, I'm here to show you how to offend your colleagues and distance people. In addition to gaining alignment, culture matters for building relationships. I was working with another client where face-to-face wasn't really possible. We did a lot over email and over the phone, and I thought I was going well above my call of duty to help them with a major fundraising effort that they were working on. But I had a lot of communication problems. What we talked about wasn't delivered, it wasn't delivered on time, and sometimes the exact opposite of what we discussed was the end result. And I'm thinking, we talked about this, what's going on? What I later learned is that as a social service organization, their culture was more focused on being, whereas as a consultant, I was more focused on doing. I wanted to get the task done, and they had no interest in getting the task done with me, nor did they trust me to do so until they built a relationship with me. That required a lot more face-to-face social interactions that I just wasn't prepared for. And this isn't just for this organization. There are many organizations, cultural groups around the world, and even within the US that operate on this spectrum of being versus doing. And you may say to yourself, well, Karl, that's nice to know, but I'm not just here to eat soup and make friends. I'm a consultant. I'm supposed to take ownership and get things done. And I'm here to tell you that culture also matters for delivering results. Another story, there was once a really ridiculously good-looking solution owner working on a Scrum team, and he is frustrated, mostly around communication. No one speaks up in demos, no one speaks up during retros, commitments to user stories and sprints aren't followed through, and he's looking around saying, we all have the same goal? Aren't we all Scrum certified? What's going on? Turns out this good-looking guy is not crazy, he's just Western. You see, most of his colleagues were from South Asia, either still working in Asia or having recently relocated to Chicago. Now, this is fascinating. Anuradha Sutharshan, in her graduate research at Edith Cowan University in Australia, asked a question. She said, how well does the Agile Manifesto and Agile principles jibe or not jibe with cultural values? You'll see in her research that if you're in the UK, Agile is natural as milk and tea. But you get to Australia or even India, however, the amount of dissonance rises. And this shouldn't surprise us. The Agile Manifesto and its principles were developed by mostly Western leaders. And that doesn't mean it's bad. Agile's very good. It just means it's not enough. You see, when we're talking about culture, we're not just talking about food and festivities. We're talking about shared values, common history, stuff that's formed over generations that deeply impacts our values. And this isn't just when you cross a border or when you're working with an ethnically diverse team. Values can differ across class, across generation, across industry, organization, and team. Now, you'll notice one common thread through all these stories. I often don't have a clue as to what's going on. It's led to real frustration, self-doubt, and failure. But I'm not really here to tell you how to offend your colleagues and distance people. All right, we're slalom. We're supposed to drive connection and teamwork. It's what we do. It's in our DNA. And we know we need to be innovative. Industries and technologies are changing rapidly, and our clients are looking to us to come up with creative solutions to meet their needs. And I think to some level, most of us are aware that to have good innovation, you want diversity. You want multiple contexts and perspectives and histories at the same table working together to create something unique and impactful. But that's only mostly true. David Livermore at the Cultural Intelligence Center shares research asking who does it better, homogeneous teams or diverse teams when it comes to innovation. And you'll see that you're actually more likely to innovate when everyone's the same, unless that diverse team has a high amount of cultural intelligence, or CQ. If you don't have that high CQ, tension comes, stress comes, those competing values start to work against each other. But if you can overcome that, you have exponential possibility into what you can create. So I'm here to tell you that we all can grow and need to grow in our cultural intelligence. So how do we do this? Let me offer first an image. Culture is like an iceberg. We're not just talking about margaritas and sombreros, okay, on the 5th of May. These are getting at deep values and shared history that's formed over a long time. We need to lean into our value of curiosity and ask ourselves, what are my cultural values? What makes me tick? What makes slalom tick? Understanding where we're starting from will set us on the right path to be able to move forward. In terms of some practical steps, let me offer some suggestions. It might mean that after 20 years in a particular industry, you opt for a project somewhere different, allowing your assumptions about the norms of the way the world works or how projects and business should be done to be challenged. It might mean taking out a piece of paper and recognizing if there's over 70 neighborhoods in Chicago, and we've only been to a few, we might want to spend our time in a diversity of places to really understand what our city's really like. It might mean joining a social service organization or a board where you're working across differences, where people aren't like you, working towards a common goal and understanding the impact of what that is. And it might mean taking a personal inventory and recognizing if all the podcasts and books and articles we read and the mentors about whom we have high praise, if they all kind of look and act and sound like us, it might be time to diversify our inputs to shape our worldview. And the most important thing we need to do to grow in our cultural intelligence is to fail. Okay? We need to fail big, we need to fail often, and we need to fail fast. There are very success-oriented people in the room that are sweating right now. Let me say, it is okay to fail. When we're working with those deep below-the-surface values, we're going to make big mistakes. It's inevitable. We need to take ownership for that and consider how we can move forward differently the next time. So when you're enjoying a delicious Colombian soup, give the cook or the chef a high five. High fives never went out of style, okay? But remember, it's not just about the soup. Thank you.